I'm a 17-year-old Clash Royale player who struggled to rank up, but everything changed when I learned about the 3-card cycle strategy. What is the 3-card cycle strategy, you ask? It's the key to my success, allowing me to reach Ultimate Champion every season. In this video, I'll break down its history and every technique that pro players use to master it. If you want to elevate your game, you don't want to miss this. Imagine being able to get back to your most powerful cards faster than ever before. Typically, you have to play 4 other cards before cycling back to one you just used. However, if you have a champion in play, you only need to play 3 cards instead of 4. This makes cycle decks incredibly powerful, because they can get back to key spells or win condition much faster than normal. For example, with a champion on the field, an Earthquake cycle deck could drop an Earthquake, play just 3 cheap cards, and already have Earthquake back in hand, making it extremely hard for heavy decks like Beatdown to keep up. This strategy became even stronger with the introduction of evolutions, but we'll talk about that later. Everything began with the introduction of champions in October 2021. The Archer Queen was broken, the Skeleton King was underwhelming, and the Golden Knight was fairly balanced. Obviously, since champions had just been released, players didn't fully grasp how much they would change the game. At the time, I could say that champions were present in 3 out of the 5 best decks, but it was always the Archer Queen, since she was overpowered. None of those decks, however, were cycle decks. In fact, as of October 28, the best cycle deck in the game was only the 12th strongest overall, and it was the classic 3.0 Expo cycle, without a champion. Clearly, players didn't immediately recognize the strength of 3-card cycle strategy, so let's skip ahead. The Skeleton King got buffed and became incredibly strong. The Archer Queen remained dominant, and the Golden Knight was still useless. The meta was ruled by Breach Spam, but this month saw the rise of one of the most iconic decks that utilized the 3-card cycle strategy, Royal Hogs cycle. I bet you immediately recognize this deck because, from this moment onward, it is still one of the best decks in the meta. Why? Because it is extremely versatile and uses cards that are consistently strong and have never truly been weak. But more importantly, the 3-card cycle strategy fits perfectly into this deck. Royal Hogs provide a fast, cheap damage win condition that can be split, and the strategy revolves around outcycling the opponent's counters. Royal Delivery offers insane defensive value with its high splash damage. Cannon is the cheapest defensive building available. Then you have a long range champion, which could be either the Archer Queen or the Little Prince. The deck was ranked as the 5th best in the game. So let's move on. It's now April 12th, and an accepted buff changed the game. The mirror now added 2 levels to the card it was used on. Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the 3-card cycle strategy? Well, this led to one of the most unfun and chaotic strategies I ever seen. Take the Royal Hogs cycle deck I just mentioned, swap in the mirror, and suddenly Earthquake became a completely menace. Players could drop a mirrored Earthquake and deal thousands of damage in just a few seconds. But that wasn't the end. Sure, the deck wasn't as dominant anymore, but other archetypes rose in popularity. The strongest among them was a Skeleton Barrel bait deck that utilized the Skeleton King. This deck could generate a massive number of skeletons and exploit the 3-card cycle mechanic to play more Dart Goblins and Skeleton Barrels. October was another key month where we saw just how impactful this strategy had become. The Phoenix and the Monk were released. The Phoenix was without a doubt the most broken card in Clash Royale history, and the Monk was also overpowered. So what was the best deck at the time? A Phoenix cycle deck that included the Monk. Not just because he was broken, but because he enabled the 3-card cycle strategy, allowing players to get back to the Phoenix faster and keep applying pressure. What happens when you create a strategy that lets players bring back an overpowered card even faster? The answer is simple: chaos. Jumping ahead to March, cycle decks struggled against a meta dominated by Lava Hound and Golem. However, it's interesting to note that even in these matchups, where cycle strategy should be weaker, champions were still incredibly powerful. And it wasn't just one specific champion. We saw Mighty Miner, Golden Knight, Skeleton King, and Monk all being used effectively. For the following months, the situation remained relatively stable. Champions were not necessarily overpowered, but they were widely used across multiple archetypes. Even outside of traditional cycle decks thanks to the 3-card cycle strategy. Could this be the most balanced state of champions? Then in June, a major update changed the Clash Royale forever. Card evolutions were introduced. If you think this has nothing to do with champions and the 3-card cycle strategy, let me explain. Evolutions are essentially stronger versions of a card, but to play an evolved card, you have to cycle through it a certain number of times. Playing as many evolved cards as possible gives you a high chance of winning since they are simply stronger. And what's the best way to cycle cards faster? By utilizing the 3-card cycle strategy with a champion in play. This synergy made cycle decks even more powerful, allowing players to get back to their evolved cards faster than ever before. Was this the peak of cycle decks? November saw the introduction of Little Prince, another broken champion. He was mostly used with the best win condition at the time, the Goblin Giant. Yeah, this is another time where champions were used because they were overpowered. Except for rare cases, no broken cards had been as impactful in the meta as the Archer Queen, the Monk, and the Little Prince. You know why. I want to repeat it 100 times. The dominance of Little Prince continued for months, so Supercell had to do something against this strategy, right? It's now July 24, and surprisingly, champions were not seen that often. Even if the 3-card cycle strategy still provided insane value, there were just better decks. 3 broken Goblin cards dominated the meta, appearing in almost every deck. Mighty Miner had some usage rate with Hog Rider, but nothing compared to before. The nerfs hit hard. Monk and Little Prince were weak. Archer Queen was below average. Golden Knight was literally dead at 1% usage rate, and the Skeleton King was just not fitting into the meta. At least Mighty Miner was still seen sometimes. With time passing, champions remained in a very bad position, except for the Skeleton King, who stayed consistent and was mainly used in mortar bait decks. But this month also saw the rebirth of Royal Hogs cycle deck. It wasn't a top tier deck yet, but it was gaining traction. Could this deck make a comeback? Well, not in the following month, because everything shifted with the introduction of a new champion, the Goblinstein. And guess what? This card was broken. It was used in Bridge Spam, P.E.K.K.A Goblin Giant, Hog Rider Cycle, Drill Cycle, Mortar Bait. Should I go on? But the important thing is that outside of the new P.E.K.K.A evolution, seriously, delete this thing, Goblinstein was primarily used in cycle and bait decks. The 3-card cycle strategy was back. It was also crucial for cycling the Goblin Giant and P.E.K.K.A evolution, but it was even more important in fast cycle decks. Was this strategy truly unstoppable? Now, in early 2025, this might be the most balanced moment for champion and the 3-card cycle strategy. Don't get me wrong, Golden Knight still sucks. Little Prince and Monk are making small comebacks. Mighty Miner is average, Archer Queen became popular again after her buff, and Goblinstein isn't as impactful as before. So, how did this strategy revolutionize the Clash Royale? It has reshaped how decks are built, made cycle decks strategy more powerful than ever, and even influenced Supercell balancing decisions. From the rise of Royal Hogs cycle to the dominance of Phoenix and the chaos of card evolutions, this mechanic has continuously shaped the game's meta. Even when champions were at their weakest, the 3-card cycle strategy remained relevant, proving its lasting impact. So what's next for this strategy? Will Supercell introduce changes to tone it down? Or will we see another champion that breaks the meta? Only time will tell.